Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third-world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be relent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Well, today I am speaking to Dr. Ona Newton. She is the CEO and founder of Tobams Group, a visionary leader driving African talent and development and global opportunities, a strategic leader, executive coach, digital transformational, social impact strategist, and a sustainability expert. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Newton at Harvard when we were both in the leading professional services firm program, and she is a wealth of knowledge. When she shared with the class, everybody stopped and turned around because they realized that they were listening to someone who had a lot to say and was very powerful. So Dr. Ona Newton, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. What a great opportunity to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent, excellent. Now, this is a new segment that I'm doing called Sustainability Smarts, which is a part of the Productivity Smarts podcast, because, the sustainability concept, I look at it holistically. It's not just about how much you can get done, right? And it's not about learning strategies to get done, do more with less so you can do more and then put yourself back in a burnout state. It's really about being as productive and making an impact in what we're doing while taking care of ourselves, while getting the rest that we need, taking care of our neurology, taking care of our bodies, and taking care of our mindsets and our families. And so the sustainability piece to me kind of fits right in, because if we are not taking care of the planet and we're not taking care of each other from a social standpoint, then we're not being really smart. Would you agree?
I do agree. Absolutely. I think is the next phase of where we all have to join our hands together. And I think what sustainability does is it brings everyone together. I don't think anyone is exempted.
Yes, exactly. Now, before we get into the meat of this conversation, I have two questions that I always ask my guests up front. And that is, what is your favorite style of music?
I think my favorite style of music is really gospel music. As you well know, that music is the rhythm of life. And I think for me, there's an element of just emotional connection with my faith when it comes to music. And because I'm an extremely busy person, I always find that solace and that kind of time to set aside to just unwind and connect. So just bringing clarity to complex ideas for me when I listen to music. And interestingly, my work with sustainability and innovation, all of that stuff, music as well acts as a catalyst to bring the out-of-the-box thinking, all right? Just as the symphony requires a harmony amongst different instruments, sustainability demands a very high level of integration of diverse perspective, actions, and innovation.
Sounds like you read my book, Symphony of Choices.
Yes, I'm about to get to it.
Because you're right on line. You're right on line with all of that because music does have that. So let me ask you this one question. This is the last question before we get into the meat of it here. And that is, what's your favorite song and why?
My favorite song is, I think, Hero by Michael Jackson.
Okay.
I believe the children are the future.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I remember. Don't ask me to sing it though.
That's okay. That's okay. Excellent. Well, listen, let's jump into this about sustainability. So, when you think about sustainability, what are the most significant challenges you see companies facing today when integrating ESG principles into their core business strategy, and how do you recommend overcoming them?
For me, one of the most significant challenges is moving away from the tick box compliance mindset.
Yes.
To really embedding ESG principles in their core business strategy. And I think that's the problem. A lot of companies and organizations do have an understanding of what sustainability means, and it's always like a tick box exercise. How do we move from that into more strategic planning and obviously incorporate this into things like corporate governance, and then bring that all the way down into operation, and then manage sustainability, obviously objectives into more kind of operational day-to-day elements that obviously significantly improves the knowledge of everyone in the organization, but also there's a measure for success.
Exactly. And I know you have your doctorate in strategy and I know master's in sustainability. So the information that your thought process and information is backed by a lot of research. Obviously, you had to do a dissertation and all of that. And, I do see companies just at this point kind of checking the box on some areas. But I also am beginning to see companies, as I'm querying different companies and individuals, where they are beginning to look at the rigor of, hey, how do we actually track this? But I think the still part that's missing is that climate strategy or sustainability strategy is also business strategy.
Yes, exactly.
So let me ask you this. How do you see the evolving landscape of ESG reporting, right? Because I know, again, a lot of it's checking the box, but in the influence of long-term corporate value, and what metrics do you believe are underutilized to measure a company's true sustainability impact?
I think that's a really good question, Gerald. I think ESG reporting has evolved from a nice to have to a more kind of critical business necessity, all right? And its influence from a long-term corporate value perspective is obviously now looking into attracting investors and building trust with all the key stakeholders and ensuring regulatory compliance. And I think one very major metrics that a lot of organizations are still struggling with is engagement. So sustainability requires multi-stakeholder engagement. Yes. And there are various elements that you can look at that from. So from a governance perspective, it's apparent that companies are saying that they have the buy-in of obviously senior management, but it doesn't end there. It cascades down all the way to the whole organization, all the key employees. Do people know what the core initiatives are for the organization, and are people involved in it, okay, across all business processes and operations and all of that stuff. And I think that also some metrics as well, things like supply chain transparency, community development impact, biodiversity preservation, they remain so underutilized. And also when I talk about community impact as well, how we're measuring that impact, because obviously the E sometimes is well expanded from an environmental perspective, and there's a lot on that, on climate change, etc. The G, yes, we know that corporate boards are meeting to make decisions on this, but then the S looks like a lot of organizations are struggling to really understand what exactly are the key focus area and how do they build that into a sustainable practice that they can actually evolve as time goes on. So for me, I feel that a fuller picture of sustainability impact is important, and people need to take accountability across the key ESG.
Exactly. I came across this in one of the books I read where they used an example of a three-legged stool to explain the ESG. And so one leg was environment, one leg was social, and one leg was governance. And it really, looking at the picture, it dawned on me that if either one of those legs are short because we're not paying attention to it, then we really have an imbalance in a wobbly ESG process, right? And I think
Exactly.
that the leg that tends to be the shortest at times for organizations is the social. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, and that's really interesting when we look at the social part. I think one of the biggest element of that is education.
Hmm.
And then I also refer back to my earlier statement about stakeholder engagement. Okay.
Hmm.
So how are we taking some of the core sustainability principles? How are we evolving that into more practical, actionable steps? And how are we involving, for example, the local communities? How are we building partnerships with NGOs, and how are we creating a support network that gives people an understanding of what it means for them? Okay, so from an organization perspective, there is a responsibility to educate from a social part of things, local communities, for them to understand what exactly the impact is and how they want to involve them. Now, I'll give you a very quick story, and this is a story that really challenged me as an individual who is passionate about sustainability, who is an advocate, reading books and all of that stuff. And one of the key things, I was away this year in July, I was in Geneva, and I was traveling with my sister, and we got to the hotel and we checked in, and we got to the room. We discovered that it was really hot, and we tried to look for where the air conditioning was. It was about, at that point in time, maybe about 23, 24 degrees. Okay.
Okay.
And we're thinking, okay, where's the air conditioning? And, we couldn't find it. So we rushed downstairs to say, what, our room is boiling hot. We need air conditioning. Now, in that environment, there's a social policy that governs all the hotels to ensure that air conditioning systems don't come up except the room is about 25.5 degree hot.
Mm.
Okay. So the gentleman at the reception said, what's the temperature of your room? And we were like 23.5. And was like, unfortunately, it's all embedded from an automated system until it gets to 25.5 before it gets the air conditioning come on, because obviously there's a lot of things around sustainability practice we've just signed into from a social aspect. And I was like, okay. Now, this is a sustainability advocate. I was so frustrated, Gerald. I said, you know what, we're going to check out. And the guy said to me, that's fine, but every hotel here is doing the same. So if you go to the next hotel, you're going to face the same. And you know what? It was almost like I was so challenged at that point in time, because what they're doing is good. But then I was considering my own comfort because I was so hot and I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
And I think what really kind of challenged me was that I was the only one at the reception complaining about it. Because I asked the question, are people complaining about it? And they said to me, no, people are used to it. Now, what's the key factor? The education. All right. People have been educated that we're all doing this to make our planning better. I could have paid for a fan. I could have, I was so hot, and the best they could do for us was open your windows and enjoy the air. And for me, again, it boils out to the fact that, how intentional are we with a lot of these things, and it's education. Because I wasn't educated that Switzerland and Geneva hotels, and I could have prepared my mind. Okay, it's a mindset thing.
Yes.
All right. And just enjoy the flow and then be part of that kind of social program to help sustainability evolve from a hospitality perspective. So that's a very good example that I thought, okay, you know what? There's a lot of learning here. And then back to your question about organizations, they need to think about all of these various scenarios and think of how they could incorporate that and educate mindsets.
Yes. That flows not only just in that situation, but I think it's the challenge for all companies to educate their employees, to educate their staff, to educate the community, that when they make those kinds of changes, and obviously that particular part in Geneva, they had educated the community at large, right? Yes. And for the majority of the hotel guests, they were aware of it. So they understood that, okay, it's going to be a little warm, because they've automated this process because of sustainability, because of being aware of climate. And I think that's really important. And I think an area around education is for executives to see, hey, how do we make sustainability profitable? And you can do both, right? So, many companies still struggle with the balancing of profitability and sustainability. How do you approach aligning ESG initiatives with financial performance to create both short-term and long-term value?
I think that's really interesting because I wrote an article for the British Computer Society on profitability and sustainability. And I think there's a misconception, Gerald, that sustainability and profitability are at odds. And I think one of the greatest barrier to progress, obviously for me, I advocate for aligning ESG initiative with financial performance by focusing on the efficiency, all right, gains. Okay, there's nothing wrong in that. But also we need to see this as an innovation opportunity. Okay, and a risk mitigation. For example, if we look at adopting renewable energy, okay, not only reduces emission, but also acts as a cut cost over time. Right. Okay, so we can look at it. I mean, I don't support greenwashing because organizations sometimes look at more profit by greenwashing and putting wrong information for the consumers to say that we're doing all of this, and that exists. All right, but there are other things that we can look at. When we look at short-term profitability, this can be harmonized with long-term resilience through strategic planning, collaboration, and fostering a culture of purpose-driven growth. And I think one of the missing link with most companies is that consumers are educating themselves on a daily basis on sustainability. So when you bring a picture out that, oh, we're not focusing on profitability, it shows that you're not being transparent, because it is very clear that, you know, there's a really kind of long-term aspect of profitability for organizations that are looking into sustainability as their core kind of initiative to drive improvement and innovation.
Right, right. It really is, you're able to do both, right? And in fact,
yes,
you know, what I've seen in my own company as we've embraced sustainability practices with our clients, and as I've worked with other clients who are embracing this, is that the more they focus on sustainability and making it a part of their business, they are beginning to attract more clients, which is actually increasing their profits. And because they're being sustainable, they're being aware of their, you know, the expenses, their waste, and just commuting and travel. And so they're decreasing their expenses, which if you add those two together, it's increasing the profits. It's increasing the bottom line. And again, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier with the hotel example, which is just education. It's getting people to be aware of that as well. Now, AI seems to be playing a big role as things move forward. What role does technology, particularly AI and big data, play in driving more effective ESG strategies? And how do you see it transforming the way we measure and achieve sustainability goals in the next decade?
And I think technology, particularly AI and big data, I think is a game changer. All right. If you look at it from an ESG strategy perspective, okay. One thing that is really key for me, obviously as a sustainability advocate, I try to educate people's mindset to start to see that AI enhances predictive kind of capabilities, enabling businesses to focus risk like supply chain, you know, disruption, carbon emission, be able to record this with precision. Okay, because obviously there's a lot of information out there that, you know, how are we ensuring that this measure of this carbon emission is accurate? So these are things that AI can enable businesses to focus things like risk and also real-time insight. I think it's really, you know, the big data will provide a real-time insight, enable that better decision-making and measurable results. In the next decade, I envision that AI-powered ESG platforms becoming the norm. Okay, helping business quantify impact, optimize resources, and accelerate their sustainability goals in a very big way.
Yes, yeah. I just finished up an AI program with Kellogg, and I was just blown away with all of the various examples that, you know, the professor gave, but they were examples where he was actually involved with those companies or businesses as a consultant, or on the board, or helping with that process, and the insight. And so I definitely see AI and big data playing a massive role in all of that data that happens around the sustainability area and ESG strategy. Now, I want to go back to social for a second and ask this question. Okay. You know, the social impact is often the most challenging to quantify within ESG. In your view, what innovative practices or partnerships have you seen that effectively drive measurable social outcomes within business?
And this is a very good question. Strategic partnership for me is core, right? So social impact indeed, right, is challenging to quantify, but innovative practices are always emerging. Okay, so for example, for instance, companies are leveraging partnerships with NGOs to co-create kind of measurable outcomes in education, healthcare. We talk about educating local communities. When you look at the younger generation, I started writing books on sustainability and encouraging teachers to teach that as extracurricular across schools in different parts of the world, because there's nothing that really is there for children of this age group to really understand what it means and how to incorporate it in school and in the playground, at home, and all of that stuff. So I think for me, I'm really obviously an advocate that supports that metrics to improve metrics continuously by partnership. All right. Yeah. So metrics like access to education, job creation, gender equality initiatives can drive tangible results. And additionally, I think storytelling through case studies can actually really humanize these metrics, showcasing the real world significance. But strategic partnership for me is key. And I think most organizations need to look into that.
Exactly.
With NGOs.
Yeah. Exactly. One of the drivers of that is leaders who could be resistant. So what advice do you have for leaders and organizations who are resistant to fully embracing ESG? And what do you believe?
And I think that's a really good point. Thank you for that. I think for leaders, right, hesitant to embrace ESG, my advice is extremely simple. The future belongs to sustainable businesses. Okay. ESG is no longer just about compliance. It's about staying relevant in a rapidly changing world. I think the most challenging reason is to prioritize ESG is obviously compelling reasons. Obviously, we need to look at things like market differentiation, access to capital. Companies with very strong ESG commitments attract top talents, top customers, loyal customers, and forward-thinking investors.
Exactly. Like I said, as I've embraced it myself, right, just firsthand and gone through the carbon accounting and applying for my science-based targets and CDPs and so on and so forth, I have noticed that we are attracting better talent. We are attracting customers that are large Fortune 500s or global companies that are saying, hey, we're still struggling with scope 3. Like scope 1 and 2, we're kind of figuring it out. We're using some tools for that. But scope 3, because it's tied to the value chain and it's complex and you got all these moving parts, how do you do that? And so there's opportunity there, right? For from a consulting standpoint, but also, the validation of the certifications and just knowing the customers knowing that you're thinking about the environment and doing good in all of those areas. Again, not just environment and governance, but also socially giving back. Companies are going to want to invest and work with you if they know that a part of the profits that they're giving you is going to go back into their community and do some good for people and make a difference. They see that as a good investment.
Exactly. I agree with that. And I feel that that's the question. When you look at a lot of sustainability reports across various organizations, the social part doesn't really explain any of this. And I feel that it might be two things, okay? Speaking to some board members and some really senior C-suite directors across or executives across organization, I think is a case of what do we do next? So there's a lot of CSR stuff, okay, corporate social responsibility, but that's not enough, okay? We need to create initiatives that we can measure, show progress, and expand on.
Exactly. So here, as I'm getting ready to land this plane here, I have one last question for you. And then I'll ask you, I lied. I said, I got two questions for you. so it'll be one where, where can people learn more about you and your books and things like that. But before I get to that last question, as climate change continues to intensify, what do you believe is the most critical or crucial action businesses must take immediately to meet that net zero target? And how do you foresee regulations shaping those actions in the coming years?
Another great question, and I'm loving this. I mean, as climate change accelerates, I think the most critical action businesses can take is to decarbonize their operation. By adopting renewable energy and enhancing energy efficiency. Regulation, right, are likely to become stricter, all right, pushing businesses toward transparency, and transparency and accountability.
Yep.
Okay, so proactive company will comply, but they also need to lead the way, obviously, by innovating sustainable solution, thereby creating new market opportunities. People need to learn from the best. And, we need companies to become advocate of this and showcase what a good example is and how best is done.
Exactly. And we definitely have to help companies stay away from that concept, as you mentioned earlier, around greenwashing, right? Because that can be, it's misleading and it serves no one. But also the actions of taking carbon accounting really serious means that you have to have the rigor of knowing what your numbers are and knowing what your total carbon emissions are. And and by doing that and capturing that, where the biggest corporates are as far as being able to challenge and where you need to invest to reduce. But also when you know what your baseline is, now you know where to go, right? You're able to have those conversations and you know where to go. I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. I've learned.
Same here. It's been awesome.
And so where can people learn more about you and where can they get your books? And because I know you also, you have a book that you wrote with a professor, but you also have children's books, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. My book's on Amazon. So I have my last book on sustainability, obviously, from a corporate perspective, was for sustainability and co-op 29. And I think, was it 29 or 28? We just did 29, didn't we? So that was 28. Yeah, I think it was 28. And it was really focusing on what it means for boards, okay?
Yep.
We're supposed to do another one for 29, but we didn't get around to it. But I think that the objectives and obviously the things that boards need to know is still kind of, there's that generic knowledge that they need to understand. I think it's how they kind of take that, and expand on that from the organizational perspective to see better results, okay? So you can find that book on Amazon. And I write an article on sustainability every week. And I think I've been doing that for over about 70 weeks now. And I take on really critical topics. And again, you can find that on LinkedIn on my page. And for the books, I felt like they were not just sustainability. I felt like there were key entities that were missing when it comes to developing younger generation. So I decided to write Think Sustainability series books for children age 7 to 14. But there were three aspects that I was looking at. So I wanted to develop the book, but I also wanted to create a workbook for the children to be able to use to develop their own sustainability initiative. But also I created a teacher's manual to be able to teach sustainability to children of that age group. So I currently have 12 series of that book.
Wow.
And each of the series has a workbook and also has a teacher's manual. Then we also have an AI augmented system that supports the learning just for people that want to learn online as well. And we're constantly building that. So a lot of our work is to work with the UN, and we're now working with various schools across the world and the government to initiate this and obviously embed this book into the extra curriculum kind of thing for children to start learning so much about sustainability. But also there's also another aspect of the book that's focused on leadership. So there's Think Leadership, Think Strategy, Think Entrepreneurship, and Think Financial Literacy, all for children from 7 to 14.
Wow.
But obviously this podcast is about sustainability. I just want to expand more on the sustainability aspect. It's just an enjoyable, powerful book for children to read at that level and understand all the concept of sustainability, including renewable energy, including recycling, including, reducing carbon emission, including circular economy, everything on sustainability. We've embedded it into those 12 series.
Excellent. Well, it has really been a joy and a pleasure. I get to see you again from the
Same here.
We did at Harvard. And I look forward to this one coming out. And as soon as it does, I will let you know. And I know the folks who are listening to this are really going to want to check out your books and check out the things that you're doing, because you have a wealth of knowledge and insight. And I think, I think you're traveling today, even as we're talking. So.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And these questions have been so timely and essential for shaping the future of sustainability business practices. I'm so honored to contribute to this important dialogue, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.